Hey everybody, welcome to the Album of Record podcast. I'm Craig, joined as always by Andrew. How's it going, Andrew?
It's going great, Craig. I am excited. This is the first Album of Record podcast episode of 2025, in which I can finally wear short sleeves again because it is 70 degrees here in Ohio. And there's just nothing like these first couple days when you cross that 70 threshold. Like, it is like absolute heaven. Like, I am good to go. I'm energetic. I'm excited. Could not be
I'm
happier.
with you, but I like to be hot in my hoodie. I'm holding on to that hoodie weather as long as possible. The sun still feels great.
I love hoodie weather. I'm a hoodie fiend. I love wearing my hoodies, but these first couple days when I can just break free for a little bit and actually get some sun on my skin, like I quite enjoy it. So
yeah, I had to pick up my kid from track practice and all the parents were like, oh, I'm going to park my car and stand outside today. It's like the first time in 4 months, 5 months anybody's done that. So no, I'm with you. It's, as the kids say, I don't know if the kids say that at all, but it hits different when you deal with an Ohio winter.
yes. And
I
at one point,
I used to feel this way back in college when I was a smoker. I was one of the, especially my freshman year in college at Boston University, I wasn't the guy who smoked inside. So I would go outside to smoke all winter long. And then when the weather broke in the spring and all these people are walking around, I was like, where the F were you guys? I've been here. I've been out here all winter long.
Yeah. The glorious days of bundling up in multiple layers just to go out for 5 minutes to get your fix. Yeah. Those are the days.
Great habit.
Yeah,
glad I
it's
did
wonderful.
That.
It's wonderful.
All right, we are here to talk about some music, but before we get to some of the new music, we're going to talk about Tool. You and I talked about this festival, Tool in the Sand, down in Mexico, I think. It was like a hard rock resort. Tool, Coheed, Mastodon. I can't remember. Primus was there too.
Yeah, Primus. Because it was all these bands that had new lineups. Mastodon, Brent Hines just left, so they have played a show without him. Primus, Tim Herb Alexander left, so they got a new drummer.
Although I think Danny Carey was supposed to play drums for Primus at these shows, so I don't know if that happened.
He didn't. They had somebody else. I don't know who he was. The name was not familiar to me, but it was, unless it was, look, with Tool, it could have very well been Danny Carey under a pseudonym.
Right.
Entirely possible. But,
well, I think Coheed is an intact lineup, but
yeah, as far as I know.
And we normally wouldn't talk about this at all. I didn't go, you didn't go, but there was a little bit of controversy. Some of the Tool fans were very upset on night 2 because they were supposed to get 2 unique sets, and Tool ended up playing 4 songs the same on 2 nights in a row. And as you and I know, but our audience might not, a Tool set these days with the long songs is only 9, maybe 10 songs, 8 to 10 songs, depending on the night. And so if you're repeating 4 songs for an audience, there were no individual night tickets. So this is the same audience both nights, essentially. And yeah, they were not happy about hearing those same songs on night 2.
I think the big thing is, especially Tool seemingly not knowing that there were not individual night tickets available, because apparently at one point Maynard was asking questions like, was anybody here last night? And it's like, yeah, all of us were, because you told us we were getting 2 different sets, and
but you also can't put it past Maynard to say it knowing full well that everybody was there both nights.
The first comment I saw on the article that I read this on, the very first comment was something along the lines of, nobody hates anything in life more than Maynard James Keenan hates Tool fans. And I think there's some truth to that. It gonna go into something that you and I have talked about a little bit. Like, Tool is becoming a increasingly difficult band to root for. I still love their music, and I will always appreciate, their output and what they've done. But just in general, they are made a lot of choices over the last probably 5 to 10 years that you're just sitting there and you're just sort of almost cringing every time, oh man, here we go again. Tool in the press for doing something to piss off their fans. and this is no exception. It's pretty low, in my opinion, to advertise that you're going to do 2 unique sets and then repeat a whole bunch of those sets afterwards. Like, it's downright.
I could see one song. Like if they wanted to play Stinkfist both nights, because Stinkfist has become the Tool song. Either they open with it or they close with it. It is the song. It's the one where they instruct their security not to steal everybody's phones or kick people out of the show. One song, okay.
Yep.
You can't get away with 2 when you're only playing 9 or 10 max in a set list. You just can't.
Yeah, and like it's downright, like, I was gonna say manipulative, but I don't even know if that's probably not the right word, but like almost fraudulent to tell your fans, hey, you need to buy tickets to this whole 2-night event because well, first of all, we're only gonna sell it that way. But second of all, we promise you we're gonna play 2 unique sets. And then like, I wonder if they're like just going, but like if their intention was always like this would just be the most literal thing that unless you play the exact same set,
they're both unique.
Then they're both unique, technically. Like if you change one song on each stay, they are no longer unique sets. And like, Metallica is playing 2 nights here in Columbus for Sonic Temple this year. And I'm not going, but this was the exact same thing. They've been marketing the hell out of this, that they are playing 2 different sets, no repeats between I think they're doing Friday and Sunday. So no repeats.
I can't remember the exact wording, but you're right. The poster is explicit. No repeats.
And so can you imagine, like in this situation, like Metallica, if they go out and play a bunch of the same songs on both of those sets, like I have to believe there's going to be some people who bought 2 nights that are going to be pretty pissed off about it because they're like, hey, like, if I knew you were going to play the same set, I would have just gone 1 night. Now, again,
so what's the counterpart? Hang on. Let's dive into this for a second. If you had to guess, what's the counterpart song? So they're going to play Enter Sandman 1 night. What's the counterpart song to make up for no Enter Sandman on the second night?
Wow, that's a good question. Maybe
Sad But True?
Maybe Sad But True, maybe Unforgiven.
Ooh, Unforgiven is totally different, but yeah, I could see it.
Yeah. Like I feel like those are probably their
I think it would have to be something from the Black Album.
I don't know, like, yeah, because like Fuel was a really huge hit for them, but like I don't know that something from Reload would be the same as something from the Black Album.
I don't think it would. Although you're right, that was a huge song.
The song was huge. Reload, the album, was not so much. I'm trying, like, yeah, like, I mean, Nothing Else Matters is an absolutely huge song as well, but like it's so different from, it's not the iconic, like there's only one Enter Sandman. And that you're almost like, okay, but like if you were only going 1 night, you'd be like, well, it's cool if you want to play that song twice so I could see that song.
But also Metallica has so many songs, and I'm not a big Metallica fan, but they have so many songs that
and they're going to play 20 songs.
And if I was there on a night where they didn't play Enter Sandman, I would be okay with it.
Yeah. And again, you're going to see 20 songs. Like they are going to play a lot of songs on each set. Like that's very different from Tool in that way.
But then again, let's say they did decide that the only song they were going to repeat in 2 nights was Enter Sandman. Would you be mad about it?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. It's like if Pearl Jam advertised 2 complete unique sets, but they decided to play Even Flow or Alive twice.
Yeah, you'd almost expect it anyway. You're almost like, yeah, that makes sense. But when you start getting, when they break out Why Go on the first night and then they play it again the second night, and you're like, what are we doing here, guys?
Yeah,
whatever the like, not the like staple songs that they play. Maybe a song like Faithful. You hear Faithful 1 night and then again the other night you'd be like, hey, come on, like, what are we doing? So
would you
I think it's hard for me in this situation because I mean this is again where probably Tool is probably on a little bit of safer ground. As a Pearl Jam fan, like it's hard for me to imagine being mad about seeing them live. But and it's also hard with Pearl Jam because you just expect this anyways. You expect when you see Pearl Jam back-to-back nights, they don't have to advertise. There's going to be some songs they'll play both nights, But for the most part, if you see Pearl Jam on back-to-back nights, you're getting a unique set list. That's just how Pearl Jam operates. So it's a little bit hard for me to really compare because, like, I'm trying to put myself in the mentality of would I be
except
as
this
a
last
hardcore.
tour. This
Yeah,
last tour, they decided that they were going to play
that
a
is true.
certain selection of the new ones, and then they played even flow basically every show.
Which has
But
always
anyway,
been true anyways. But
yeah.
no, that's actually a good point. Like, I think there probably was some Pearl Jam fans, and maybe I'm misremembering, but I do feel like there was some Pearl Jam fans grumbling a little bit early in the tour when they
No way.
before
Pearl
we
Jam fans grumbling? It's not possible.
before they knew that there was going to be this like dark matter set in the middle of the show. I think there was some grumbling of people like, hey, why are we getting the same songs back to back nights? Which is not typically how Pearl Jam has operated in the past. But you still got the majority of the show overwhelmingly unique. Like, so sorry you had to hear Scared of Fear back to back nights. Oh no, like you'll be okay. But, or Setting Sun, you know,
You know
like, oh
what? Take your
God.
bathroom break if you need to. It's fine. Nobody
Yeah.
cares.
Yeah. So back to your original question, would I be mad as a hardcore Pearl Jam fan seeing them back-to-back nights if I got more or less the same set? I'd be disappointed. I don't know that I would be mad. Like, I can always have a good time at a Pearl Jam show, but I'd be disappointed. I think what's different in this case of Tool is just that of how this was marketed to the fans. Like, I I'm sure there are people who would have said, I am not willing to spend this amount of money to see them play the same set back to back nights. Like, I'll pay this much money if you're promising me I'm going to get totally different shows both nights. But if you're going to play the same set, I don't even, if you're going to play 6 of the same songs, maybe you wouldn't have spent that money otherwise. And that's where it gets into the ground of being a little manipulative.
So I'm just reading an article now that says that reportedly facing a class action lawsuit, but I don't know if that's
Jeez.
actually true.
Yeah. But I mean, you would think there's a chance that that could open the door for something like that if you're.
It's since emerged that one fan in attendance happens to be a Georgia-based lawyer and believes fans are entitled to compensation and is asking fans to join a class action lawsuit. I don't know if that's actually true, but he made a statement to Metal Hammer, and then his statement is, the potential lawsuit against the promoters of Tool in the Sand is indeed being investigated. We have had lots of interest from Tool fans who attended the festival, a category which I personally fall into. These were my 27th and 28th Tool shows. There was a palpable sense of betrayal in the air as the show began the second night, and it lingered throughout the remainder of the weekend. Hang on, more quotes. What it boils down to is that purchasers of the festival package were promised 2 unique sets by Tool. While the comments on these posts argue that what unique means, the reality is that the opportunity to see Tool play 2 unique sets, i.e. no repeats, was the determining factor for most attendees to pull the trigger on spending thousands of dollars to attend.
And that's a big thing there. Thousands of dollars. You're making a pretty big financial commitment to go to this, and in a time commitment, logistics, all of that. Like, this is a destination event. So a lot goes into you attending that, and to just piss on your fans like that and just play a bunch of the same songs anyways. It's just hard to feel good about that as somebody who's really loved Tool my whole life,
Yeah. Although, you and I have talked about our complex relationship with this band as we age and as they age. And I've told you, I don't know if I've said on the podcast, but I'm not mad about it, but I don't think I will ever see that band live again. I don't think I need to. The last few times I've gone to see them live, I'm fine putting my phone down. I'm fine being at a show where I put my phone in a bag. I don't love it, but I'll do it. But their process of enabling their security to go after everybody who holds up a phone is more distracting than people holding up phones.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
implementation of their anti-phone stance is so crappy. I just don't want to be a part of it anymore. Like, no phones, fine. Phones, fine. But everybody looking out as security is walking around with their flashlights pointing it at people with their phones up and then removing people and fighting with people while I'm trying to get into music. Like, I can't enjoy your 17-minute song that you probably played 3 nights in a row.
Yeah.
you know. And so I'm done. I'm just not going to see Tool anymore. I've got my memories. They don't owe me anything. I'm fine.
There's something like honorable about the intent. Like, I
Yeah.
do hate when I'm at a show and the person in front of me holding their phone up in my
Yes.
face, and recording like the entire song. I hate it. I can't stand it. Like, except for when I do it, I don't mind it when I do it. Then I get my phone out, But no, but like it is distracting. It really is distracting with everybody holding their phones up constantly at shows. Like,
But you get
so
used to that too.
I go to so many of these shows, and like my whole life going to a concert has been about the music. I've actually to the point that I would guess probably 90% of the concerts I've gone to, I've been 100% sober. Because I just don't want to be in an altered state whatsoever. Like, I want to experience the music. And I'm not placing any kind of value judgments on anybody who does otherwise. I'm just
No,
telling
it's a
you where
choice.
I'm coming from. So like, there's like a purity to the music, and it does irk me a little bit when I see people always messing around on their phones right in the middle of a song. Like,
And
it's
to your
like,
point, if you want to get hammered for a concert, go see Jimmy Buffett. But if you're
yeah,
there for the music, it's not so much about the party as it is, checking
yeah,
out the
like,
band.
and so I
I can
think
party anywhere, anytime.
yeah, for sure. Like that's always the thing. Like, I always think too, like, I mean, the shows when I have not been sober, again, it's not like I've been to the point of like falling over. But when you see people like that, it's like, bro, like just spent $100 on this ticket, plus however much it costs you for the beer and whatever else, and you're not going to remember this show because you are obliterated to the point that you can't even stand up or stay awake. Like, was it worth it? But so maybe that's where I guess I would get a little judgmental about it. But like, so again, I think there is some honor in the intent of what Tool is trying to do, and just saying, look, if that's what you're into, this is not the band for you. We want our live show to be purely about the music. And I get that, and I want to respect it. But to your point, it is incredibly distracting dealing with the enforcement arm of it. I almost wish that they would just really encourage their fans not to do it. But if they do it, what are you going to do? Like, you know what I
Or
mean? Like,
or go Jack White, go Bob Dylan, and hire the Yonder Pouch people like you're at a Chris Rock comedy show and he's afraid his material is going to get out, and have everybody lock up their phones. And if a couple people cheat, they cheat, but 99% of people are going to have their phones locked up in the Yonder pouches.
yep, that's a great call. Like, yeah,
But
do
these
that
half
too.
measures, man, it's the worst of all solutions. It's a
Yep.
non-solution.
And it is annoying because they are aggressive in enforcing,
They are.
and you see them everywhere, just cutting through the crowd, trying to get at people.
And
It is.
pointing their flashlights like laser
Yep.
pointers at people.
Yep. And it is. It's very distracting. So,
Although I'm not sure if they were doing that at Tool in the Sand.
yeah, I mean, who knows?
Because there were plenty
But,
of videos of upset fans when they started repeating songs.
yeah.
And like that's part of it too. Like, imagine you're there, right? And you already saw the first night, and they start the first song that you already heard the previous night, and you're like, oh man, this kind of sucks. And then they do a second song that you heard the first night, and you're like, are you serious? And
Yeah,
then it gets
the slow
worse
build
and
of it.
worse and worse as it keeps going, until it finally ends.
I was trying to see here if I could actually find what songs they repeated. It looks like
I think it was Numa.
they only played 9 songs, it looks like, which this is March 8th. Yeah, they played 9 songs. And then
It was Numa, Jambi, Rosetta Stoned, and Fear Inoculum.
so that's half of the set.
Pretty much.
So, yeah, it's an interesting set list looking at this one. Fear Inoculum, Enema, Rosetta Stoned, Numa, Jambi, No Talk Box, Descending, Intolerance, Chocolate Chip Trip, extended version, and then Swamp Song. Like, I find it fascinating that Chocolate Chip Trip is a song that they broke out for their most hardcore fans. But
They do. They play that one quite a bit because I think the band likes to jam on it.
Yeah.
And they played it they played it the second night. I don't believe there are any vocals in that one, right?
Not on the record. I don't know if there
So
is when they
Maynard's
do it
voice was
live because
tired.
it's
He wanted some time off. Like
yeah, that
I
could
hate
be.
to be so bitter and angry about it. I'm really not mad about it. But your comment that Tool hates their fans, or it's Maynard. Maynard hates the fans.
Right.
And it's sometime, and I don't think he actually does, and maybe he doesn't even realize he's doing it, but it's just a palpable taking for granted.
It could be a commitment to the bit, I mean,
Yeah.
Maynard's always been the most like counterculture lead singer that you could possibly
And to
have in
be
a
fair,
band.
you know what I think he would say? I think he would say, okay, well, if you don't want to come anymore, don't come. And that's what I've decided to do. So I'm not going to like sit here and bitch about it. I'm really not mad.
Yeah, no, I'm not
And
mad either. More
usually
like
the
I said,
people who say, I'm not mad are the people who are the most angry. But I'm really not. They could play Cleveland tomorrow and I'm not going to go. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to pay my $250 or $300 or whatever it is. And I hope everybody has a wonderful time.
Yeah. And I still land on where I was originally, where I said I'm not mad, but I am disappointed. And it's just the latest incident where you're just like, really, Tool? Like, we can't just like, they're at a point in their career, like, it's like, if you don't want to be in Tool, if you don't want to do Tool anymore, like, let it go. But like, I think maybe that's part of the thing that's really annoyed me, is this perception that Maynard gives that Tool is just this awful chore that drags him down. It's beneath him, but he will come down, from the mighty vineyards of Arizona and record an album once every 10 years, for the sake of the pathetic fools who listen to such music.
I think he actually talks about his bandmates a lot that way too. Like he shows up and does it because these three guys keep jamming out and writing songs. And,
Yeah.
so he comes in at the end and throws vocals on, but he's not involved in the writing process from the
Yeah.
get-go.
It's an obligation, right? Like, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
he bought into a franchise and he can't let the
Yeah.
franchise go.
But it just doesn't make you feel joyous and excited. Like, again, I know, here we go talking about Pearl Jam again, but like, just compare and contrast the way the guys in Pearl Jam talked about Dark Matter and just the genuine excitement they had for that album and the affection they had for each other in the band, and the way,
And like a
just,
thankfulness that they could still do it.
yes, like, it just gives you night and day feelings of wanting to be a part of that community and supporting that band, versus the other approach where you treat it like it's this thing that is beneath you, and you're so much better than these moronic fans that listen to such shitty music. Right? Like,
Well, I
because
wonder how much of it is.
and again, I think it is partially shtick. I really do think part of it is just Maynard playing a bit, that
Well,
he
but the
is
other part
this
of it, I think, is
curmudgeonly.
getting older and being 60 years old and not necessarily feeling the same way you did when you wrote all that stuff that you got to keep performing as if you're 25 still,
Yeah.
like, or 30 or whatever the number is, It's like he's an older gentleman who's at a hip replacement, who's got like a vineyard and kids and adult children and all these bands and everything else. And it's like he's got to go out there and be pissed off at God and society and California and all this stuff like it's 1998 or 7 all over again. It's like
I mean,
it's
to be
hard to
fair,
go
though,
back in time.
like, it is partially age, but he was also writing "Hooker with a Penis" when he was in his
But at least
20s,
then he
or
was legitimately angry about it. Now he's got
yeah,
to gin it up.
that's true. That's true.
All right, where
Anyways,
do we want to go next?
that's Tool. Let's let's pivot from Tool and talk about maybe some couple albums that we haven't talked about yet. There's been a couple new releases in the last couple weeks, but in general, I kind of wanted to pick your brain a little bit about the state of 2025 and new music, because I was telling you a little bit offline, like, I've really felt very apathetic about new music in 2025, and I don't know the last time I've gone to mid-March without having like at least 2 or 3 albums that I'm like, God, I love these albums. These are going to be top 10 albums for me at the end of the year, no doubt. Like, I'm excited. Like, I just haven't had anything like really hit me in that way. You know, we've talked about some things on here that I've truly loved. LS Dunes is awesome. Abdomen, I really loved that record. Dax Riggs, his solo album, I like a lot.
Church Tongue EP.
The Church Tongue EP, but like a lot of these things are things that I listen to, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. I like it, but I'm not like excited and eager to keep listening to it. The one
All right, well, let
exception
me
for
throw you
me.
my first theory before
Okay,
you.
yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
First theory is that for you and me, and I think kind of universally, 2024 was such a phenomenal year. For you and me personally, we were gifted a really great Pearl Jam record that you and I absolutely loved. Then you had Knocked Loose. And we're talking about two records that you and I loved to a ridiculous degree. And neither one of them ended up being our top because we fell in love with foxing all over again into another level. For me, it was MJ Lenderman, and you had whatever your versions of those were. Drug Church. Right. And no matter what 2025 had in store, even if it hadn't been a slow start, which it has been, it was, as humans, we can only take so much high, and it was going to feel like a lull here in 2025 no matter what. So that's my first theory.
Yeah, I think there's probably definitely some truth to that, because like when I look at the list, you know, and I told you, and I think I've talked about it on here before, I keep a running list of albums I'm looking forward to in the future. And on January 1st, the only album I had on my list was the Abdomen record that came out a couple weekends ago. And since then, albums that have come out have not been things that I've added to my list. Most of these have been things I've found retroactively after the fact that I hear people talk about that I go back and listen to. And so I do think it's telling, like the band's like, I'm dying to hear this Deaf Heaven record. I'm dying to hear the new Scowl album. Those are coming up here in the next couple weeks. So there are some of these like staples that I'm pretty positive I'm going to love that are on the horizon. So I do think that that's part of it, is in general, just the bands that I love have not put anything out yet this year. Everything has been about discovering either new bands or bands I've listened to before, but haven't been like crazy in love with, that put out something that I find interesting now. So I do think that there's probably a little bit of a combination of that, but to your other point, like there is also just the come down in general anyways, like because 2023 was a pretty good year for music too, and then 2024 was just I remember talking to you like 3/4 of the way through 2024 just being like, are we actually getting too much good stuff this year? Like, is it almost overbearing how many unbelievable albums there are? And so sure enough, 2025 swings around and we're sitting here like twiddling our thumbs and doing the meme, poking it with the stick, saying do something.
Yeah, but and that's the other thing. Maybe 2025 really truly is just that slow of a start, because it feels like all the things that we're excited about are trickling out singles one at a time, or Deftones is talking about releasing their record as they continually expand the number of dates on their tour. And so maybe, just maybe, this is going to be a come from behind positive year. But I mean, it's okay if it's a down year as well.
Yeah.
You know, it'll be disappointing to you and me. It'll be harder to do this show. But, you know, I think even no matter what happens, there's kind of an interesting thing for us in terms of the narrative and building the narrative around years. The other thing that's constantly interesting to me about how you and I even became friends is that our favorite records hit so many different genres. And like, yeah, there's like a certain level of emo or pop where you're out, and there's a certain level of rap and maybe even, sloppy punk.
Yeah, I'd say more of the punk. When
noisy
it leans,
punk, not sloppy, noisy.
On the hardcore spectrum, when it leans too far into punk, I think is where you tend to fall off.
And if it gets too poppy, you're like, this sounds like Katy Perry, I'm out.
Yeah, correct. So, but yeah, but no, but you're right. But then, like outside of those, like there's like this massive overlap that touches
So
on a
so
lot
I
of different.
lost my I forgot my point. Point being that it's almost shocking that we could have a down year with how
Right.
much of the waterfront you and I cover.
That's actually a good point. And I do think, like, too, like, even if we were talking like the larger pop culture, there is no monoculture anymore, but like in the larger sense of pop culture, what are the big albums of 2025 so far?
No, you're right. I mean,
I
the
don't
the
even know.
biggest one of the biggest a couple of the biggest releases just in terms of people were talking about them in my press universes were still very small. Where the Jason Isbell record, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking like Barty's Strange,
Waxahachie,
that was
but that
24.
no, was it?
Yeah,
Oh, I thought that was.
Waxahachie
I thought
released nothing in 25 that I
okay,
know of.
okay.
But then again, let's think about this. I think we've got a lot of potential in 2025. I'm super excited to hear the Def Heaven record. Arm's Length is still forthcoming. Deftones. There's a lot of chance for 2025 to redeem itself.
Yeah. Oh, get this. Tiger's Blood came out March 22nd, 2024. So I was way off on Waxahachie. But yeah, no. So like it's just funny, like even thinking of something like, I don't know, like like Boy Genius that came out early last year and was like this massive touchstone thing. It didn't hold up for all. Like I feel like by the end of the year last year, people had kind of forgotten about that Boy Genius record, but like
I think
it
so.
still happened and carried the first half of 2024 on the larger pop culture, and we just haven't had that touchstone album that like everybody's talking about this year.
Well, and for you and me, maybe we're going to get some of those every other year kind of bands. So,
Yeah.
I think of Bully and Blonde Shell. I don't think we're going to get another Brutus record, but maybe. You never
I
know.
mean, yeah. It seems like they kind of were preparing us for down 20.
And I didn't mean to just name all the female artists, but you and I talked about that when
Yeah.
2023 was just rock women killing.
Yeah.
Um, and then it was a little bit softer last year, a little bit more the Americana and country, and
Yep.
less of the roar. But you've got
Yeah.
Scowl as well.
Yeah. That
Scowl's gonna
Skull's gonna
knock
make
you
a
right out.
huge comeback for it. Like I've absolutely loved each of the 200 singles they've released from that album. I'm not sure if there'll be any songs on the album I haven't heard by the time it finally comes out, because that doesn't come out till April. So we still got several weeks to wait yet. But no, but I mean, it also though has given me confidence that I'm gonna love that album and be listening to that one nonstop when it comes out. So,
So let's talk
but
about a couple of the new ones that you and I have checked out. That first up, I should probably bring up one that I know it pisses you off that I like this one so much. We got Sam Fender, People Watching. You're just going to have to get used to the fact that I like something that you don't like. And I know it pisses you off, but you're just going to have to get used to it.
what pisses me off about it is just because like it's so bad, and like I don't want to think of you of having such fondness for such a bad album. But I'll let you make your case.
No, the Sam Fender record was produced by the guitarist from. Oh, wait, my brain stopped working.
It's one of the British bands,
They're
right?
not British, but it's fine. I'll
The
figure it out.
producer,
Sam Fender is British,
as we
and his
both furiously
producer,
Google.
yeah, furiously googling.
I'll look it up while you talk. So
All right. Well, anyway, it's a record that is rock, but it's more of that kind of Bruce Springsteen Americana sound, which is hysterical because the man is British. But somebody, and I think it was IndieCast, they initially compared it to. Go ahead.
it's Adam from the War on Drugs.
The War on Drugs. Thank you. It sounds like The War on Drugs with Brandon Flowers from The Killers singing, but with a slight British accent from time to time, which is just, it's very weird to put those three things together. But if you hear the record, it's exactly what it sounds like. And I find Sam Fender's vocals to be really, really great. I think the music is really solid. And I think it sounds like The Killers meets The War on Drugs. And where The War on Drugs can be a little bit spacey and maybe a little bit avant-garde, this is more poppier and more approachable like The Killers. And so for me, it's like just a really great rock record that shouldn't offend anybody, and just, but it definitely borders on pop, which is I think maybe why you don't love it.
That's exactly why I don't like it. To me, I don't hear any of the things you just talked about, which is funny because like that two of us who have so much overlapping taste can listen to the same thing and hear something completely different. But like we run into this a little bit with even like Filth is Eternal, who I've tried to get you to listen to 100 times, and I don't understand how you don't hear it the same way I do. This might be like the reverse of that, where you don't understand why I don't hear Sam Fender the same way you do. I don't hear The War on Drugs. I don't hear The Killers. To me, it's just cheesy pop crap. I really quite strongly dislike that record, and I'm not like, you know, I everybody
I
go
love
listen
it,
to it,
man.
decide for yourself what you think, but this is very much in the category not for me. This checks that box. It is not for me.
That's so funny. All right, another one that I wanted to talk about, and I don't think we've talked about A Place for Owls yet, except in passing. But I want to know, like, all of the audience out there, this record came out in November of 2024, and I just discovered it in February of 2025. And I think November, like by Oscar rules, it doesn't qualify for the 2024 awards. It's too late in the year. I think it leaks into 25, and it's fair game for my list this year.
You know what I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, you're a stickler. You're a hardcore. Somebody could release a record on Christmas, and you'd be like, "Sorry, can't."
Sorry.
That's, you chose your choice.
That's right. You got to live with it. But anyways, go ahead.
No, I mean, so you obviously you've got no bend on that whatsoever. I think that's like the autism coming out.
I really don't. Like there's no way I would ever put an album that came out in 2024 on my list of favorite albums of 2025. Like I suppose I could like you could convince me maybe to reframe it that it isn't the best albums or my favorite albums that came out in 2025, but my favorite albums that I listened to in 2025. But it would require an entire like reframing. Like then all my previous lists are all messed up, and it just opens up a Pandora's box that I don't want to go down. So
See, and I
in
just
my
think
neurotic craziness, I'm just gonna stick with my rules.
well, I think I just care about art more than you do. And if honoring the art means that I've got to take a November of 24 and put it in 25, then that's what I'm going to do, because I love art just a little bit more than you do.
Apparently,
you love rules,
I love
strictures.
Rules. Yes, very much so. I need rules.
If somebody reads the transcript of this episode, they're going to be like, do these guys even like each other?
This is like a lifelong rivalry coming to a head here.
All right, so one of the new records, truly a 2025 record that you and I both just discovered in 2025, was recommended on X, Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, by a band that you and I both liked their EP in 2024, Ben Quad, and they shared this record, Downward parentheses 2 by the band Downward.
I love this album title, by the way.
Me too.
So if any of you have ever copied and pasted a folder on a Mac, and when you paste it, it'll like keep the same name, but it'll put in parentheses 2 at the end of it. That's what this album title is, which is absolutely hilarious, tongue-in-cheek, well played. I appreciate
the only thing funnier would have been if it was like Downward Final.
Yes, exactly. And actually, I think I'm incorrect. I actually think it's Windows that does this, not Mac.
I think it is too.
Because Mac will do like copy of.
Some level of detail nobody possibly wants to know. When I create the thumbnails for YouTube and the podcast on Canva, I'm using the same template and I'm creating a new page. So every time I download, it's like parentheses 9, parentheses 10, parentheses 11.
Yeah.
And then I switch templates and it starts over.
But you got like, I love that they named their album this. Like, it's a fantastic little tongue-in-cheek little joke. So
All right. So for the record itself, do you have
yeah,
any quick
but
notes?
I do. But can I also just say, hey, it'd been really great if Ben Quad put out like a full album right now. Like that would have been great. This is the window where we should have had a new Ben Quad album. I'd be going crazy for that. But anyways, no. So the Downward album, very, very good. You and I both independently, almost at the same time, said this reminds us of Kara Kara, but like if they rocked a little more,
Yeah,
Kara Kara doesn't. Is it
Kara,
Kara
however you
Kara?
pronounce. I don't know, but it's it was kind of an indie rock band. I think from 2022. They put
Yeah,
out a record, and they're from Philly.
Preoccupations. Yeah, that
Yeah.
album was so good.
Yep.
Preoccupations, but yeah, this they sound Kara Kara sounds like a Philly band. Like
They do.
if you say that, like there's like a certain sound they fit into that. I don't know where these guys are from, Downward, but no, they touch on that a little bit, but they bring in a little bit of more of a heaviness. They play with the light and dark dynamics a lot, and the loud and soft dynamics a lot. Like a lot of these songs do the thing that I love, where it's like starts out as one thing and then turns into something else halfway through before becoming something else. Like I love that kind of structure of a song, and they do that really well on a couple of these. For me, the second half is a little bit weaker than the first half. Every time I listen, I tend to fade out a little bit in the second half of this record. It might be the thing that keeps this from being a true like year-end top 10 for me, but as of right now, this has definitely been one of my favorite things that I've listened to this year.
So do you remember where Ben Quad is from?
I actually don't know.
They're from Oklahoma. And guess where Downward is
So
from?
they got to be from Oklahoma then.
They're from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So Downward to me,
how about that
sounds...
Oklahoma scene? You got Chat Pile from Oklahoma too.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Downward to me sounds very much like old school Pedro the Lion with slightly heavier guitars. They're not afraid to go slow. They're not afraid to be deliberate. The vocal delivery is very David Bazan in terms of the tone of voice. It's definitely somewhere between baritone and tenor. He's not afraid to go a little bit low. It's a little bit understated at times, but then the guitars and the chunkiness and the loudness and the dynamics of the guitars is rarely put the same way on Pedro the Lion records over the years. So that's where it diverges, but it's still in that same style that at its absolute heaviest, this is very much like Pedro the Lion, and I love it. I think the you're right, it's a top heavy record, but in the middle, Line, number 4, 5, and 6, Line, Dark Screen, and Ibex are just killer songs right in the middle.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I like how it finishes a little bit better than you do, but I don't think you would say Rival's a bad song.
No. It's more of it tends to lose my attention more in that second half. It's not that I dislike it. It's just I tend to fade off a little bit. So
yeah,
but it's definitely worth checking out.
Great record.
Yeah.
All right. What else do we need to talk about?
I don't believe we've talked about the Cloakroom album yet.
No.
So they put out an album called Last Leg of the Human Table. This is a band from Indiana. I guess at their core, like they're a shoegaze band. Like you're going to hear the hum comparisons with these guys. Like they do a lot of that. I wouldn't consider them as heavy as hum, not as loud as hum.
No.
They're a lot more spacious. Their references pull more. I was reading a Stereo Gum. They actually did a pretty cool interview with them in which they talked about some of the references for this. And the references are like, Beatles and like more like 60s and 70s type stuff. And you do hear that bleed into this a lot more than you would certainly in hum. But still, their last album they put out a couple years ago was one that like I really liked, but like I kept forgetting about it. And then I would like see the album cover somewhere and be like, oh yeah, I really liked that. And then I might listen to it once and then forget about it again. And I worry that this is going to happen to this album to some degree too. I don't know how much staying power this has, but in terms of like a genre that I really like sort of like heavy shoegaze type sound, I really like this album quite a bit.
I found this record solid and interesting. I grew a little bit tired of the slacker, breathy vocals.
Yeah, which is not your thing anyways. Like you...
No. but it's a good record. I will definitely listen to it again. It probably won't make my top 10, but like totally totally respectable record. I'm not trying to trash it, that's all.
Yeah. And then
Go ahead.
did you have something else to say about Cloakroom?
No, I was going to go on to the next one, but I'm going to let you do it.
Okay, well the last one I wanted to talk about, it was Deep Sea Diver, which
I was
this
hoping
is
you
a
were going to
band
talk about that one, and then I got one more after that.
band slash artist that I don't really know a whole lot about outside of the fact that they were supposed to open for Pearl Jam, or they did open for Pearl Jam on the Gigaton tour. I don't know if that was one of the tours that got cut short or canceled. I can't really remember all the details, but I know they were listed as an opener for Pearl Jam in the past. They're on Sub Pop Records. Like I hear like this, to me this is like a poppier Sleater Kinney almost. Like I hear a lot of the like Sleater Kinney approach to rock, but then like apply a bit of a more poppier type rounding of the edges, if you will. Gives you this Deep Sea Diver album called Billboard Heart. And it, to me, the big thing about this album is I just find it really catchy. Like I just really enjoy this album. Like not every song is an absolute standout, but like when the songs that hit, like really hit you, you're just like, man, that is really good. Like there are some really high highs on this Deep Sea Diver album.
All right, so I wasn't particularly interested in listening to this, but I checked it out anyway, and it might have almost become forgettable, but then there was kind of an electronic inspired song, or it had some electronics in it, which, and it's the only time on the record where it reminded me of Churches, but that perked me up because I'm such a big fan of Churches. And then I almost said dove in. Deep Sea Diver. I dove into Deep Sea Diver. That's really bad. Totally unintentional. But I ended up really enjoying the second half of the record a lot. Shovel is a really great song. I love the closing song.
Great album closer. I can't remember
I can't
the
find
name
it right
of it
now, but it's an absolute heartbreaker, and I love it. It's so good.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure as an entire record whether this one's going to stick with me, but
Yep.
I'm really glad I listened to it, and I will definitely pull a couple songs out of it.
Yeah, I think that's why, to me, this is one that's just worth recommending to our listeners. I think
it's a perfect Craig song title. Happiness is not a given. It's
there
so
we go.
emo.
Yeah, but yeah, so definitely at least check this one out. You may or may not like it, but there's a lot of quality on this album that's worth checking out.
All right, so these are records that you and I are not going to do deep dives on throughout the year, so I think it's worth mentioning. I listened to this one because I thought you were going to want me to at some point, and then I mentioned it to you the following week, and you're like, oh yeah, that one. And it was like understated. And that's Constellations for the Lonely by Doves, which I listened to.
Oh, yeah.
And I was really pleasantly surprised by it. I listened to it on a Saturday night. I didn't have anything to do. I was lying in my bed, just listening to music, doing nothing else. I wasn't playing a game on my phone. I wasn't looking at anything else. I just listened to music, and I really enjoyed it. I called it old man indie rock, and that's exactly what it sounds like. With it recalls, Pink Floyd very loosely, and classic rock. The vocalists are kind of whatever on their own. When they harmonize, they're a lot better. And it's just an interesting record.
You'll be happy to know our mutual friend Dave recommended this album to me independently after you sent it to me.
Love
too.
it.
I got both these yahoos trying to talk to me about Doves. I don't know why I don't love this album. I actually expected to love this album.
Am I wrong that you loved some previous stuff by Doves?
Absolutely. And I can't put my finger on like why this isn't like resonating with me in the same way. And I'd love to sit here and like be able to sound smart and articulate what it is. Like, cause nothing, I hate like sitting here and just being like, it just was okay for me. But like, that's kind of just what it was. It was just okay for me. And I don't know if I need to like listen to it in a different headspace. Like I think I was listening to it not in the right headspace for it. There's certain artists that you kind of have to be in a mood for anyways. And if you're in a bad mood, I don't think Doves is a great listen.
I think a long walk with the sun shining. I think that's
Yes,
the time to listen to Doves.
exactly. Maybe I'll do that after we're done recording this, because I am planning on
Perfect.
going for a walk after this. So maybe I'll put on that Doves album and listen to
Well,
it
you
again
and
in
I
a
are
different
almost at
setting.
the finish line of this podcast anyway. I wanted to mention, you're not going to have any comments about this. I wanted to mention that I'm a Tori Amos fan from way back in the day. Her new record is a companion to a children's book that she wrote. And I'm not going to tell you it's good per se, but like if you're a fan of vintage Tori Amos, you're gonna hear it's the lyrics are silly because they're about a children's book, but she can still write songs that sound like vintage Tori, like the best vintage Tori Amos. It's kind of interesting. I will not end up listening to that. That was like 1 or 2 listens, and I'm done with it for the year. And that's not an insult. That just is where I slot that one.
Yeah.
You don't
That
have
actually
anything to say about it.
surprised me that you were so into Tori Amos. I never knew that before. I just totally missed me. Like, I don't have positive or negative opinion of her. She just totally missed me somehow.
Her first 3 records were just indispensable to me in the 90s through whatever I can't Little Earthquakes all the way to Boys for Pele. Boys for Pele I feel like was instructive to me in terms of pushing me to listen to music and enjoy music that I might not have enjoyed in any other way. Like, cuz it's weird and it's melodic, but it's complicated and it's hard. It was difficult. The degree of difficulty of being a fan of that record was high, and I feel like it was useful to me. But it also produced one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard in my entire life, played at my funeral, Hey Jupiter. So,
There you go.
and then last but not least, a record that we're going to talk about by not talking about, and that's the review, and that's the Jason Isbell record.
Yeah, I was very excited. This was actually one that was on my list for quite a while that I was looking forward to. I really struggled with it this week. I like, as I was listening to it, I kid you not, like I was thinking in my head, I'm like, man, like this has like a Zach Bryan like feel of like, but like in
I
terms
really
of
only
like,
heard one song that kind of recalled Zach Bryan.
but I don't mean that it sounds like Zach Bryan, but in terms of this idea of just like plop my heart out into these songs, but not like finish them and just put them out. And that sounds like I'm being negative, but you know how much I love Zach Bryan, but for whatever reason, it doesn't work as well, I think, with Jason Isbell. But what was funny is then I listened to the IndieCast podcast last weekend and they were talking about this album. They made literally the exact same point. So it sounds like I'm copying them. I swear I had the exact same reaction to it. Like they talked about that. Like, I think it was Stephen Hayden who was like, for all the ways that Zach Bryan does need an editor, and he does need a producer or an editor. That's kind of what this album needed. But I think Jason Isbell would probably argue, but that's kind of like the point. This was not meant to be a produced album. This is a very raw reaction to a traumatic experience in his life that he needed to deal with, and he did it very quickly. And you can like it or not, but that's his reaction to it. That's my read on this.
Oh, and I forgot one that I absolutely have to talk about. Not because I've finished forming an opinion, but because I'm kind of suspect of my current opinion. I think I like the new record by Spirit Box, and I think it's going to grow on me. And I don't know that I trust that. I don't believe in guilty pleasures. I really don't. I only believe in enjoying stuff that I like. That was the story of a couple of years ago, the metal record, the band that dresses up,
Sleep Token.
Sleep Token. I love that record unabashedly, and I don't care that they're cheesy. I wrote a whole article about them dressing up and their vernacular and all that stuff and how awful the packaging is in so many ways, but I don't care. I just love that record. I love the blend of the pop and the metal and the weirdness. I just love it. Speaking of which, they supposedly have something coming out as well. So we'll see how that lands for me. But that's kind of how I feel about Spirit Box too, where Like, this is a female fronted metal band, like a pop metal band, a new metal band. If it was 1999, this would be the biggest band in the world right now. And they're pretty big anyway. Like, they headline metal festivals, or not headline, but they're in those top few lines where you can easily read the band's name, and they draw huge crowds. And like, I'm telling you, I think this record is really good. I don't know if it's great. I don't know if it's actually going to stick with me, but that's my suspicion right now.
Yeah. Like I told you, like my thing with Spirit Box is just like they're just this band that I always forget which band they are. Like their name reminds me of like a bunch of other bands that have like kind of similar names, and
The one
I'm
you
always
came
like,
up with
no,
was Fleshwater.
Fleshwater is one and I know the Fleshwater thing is also because they're both female fronted bands too, which then you like start to mix around. They're both like two words mixed together in a band title, and I always forget which band Spirit Box is. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, and we found out that Ithaca is not coming back. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm just grasping at straws trying to find something that approximates Ithaca, which was
Approximate
that
is doing a lot of work there. That word is carrying
no,
some water.
no, I don't think so. I think approximates is exactly the right word without overselling it.
That's not how I felt about it, but fair
Well,
enough.
no, I don't think approximates means what you think it means, because I think I was being very, very careful and
Okay.
precise.
Fair enough.
The tiniest little bit. No, but what was that? 22 Ithaca?
Ithaca? Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't 23. It could have been 23.
It could have been 23.
I bet it was 22 though. I bet you anything it was 22.
I'm gonna look, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's maybe the
I
maybe the
like
best metal album other than Knocked Loose, which is it metal, is it hardcore? But between Ithaca
yeah.
and Knocked Loose, those are probably the two best metal records I've listened to in the last 4 years, 3 years.
Yeah, I would definitely I'm pretty sure Knocked Loose considers themselves hardcore more so than metal, but Ithaca is straightforward metal.
Yeah, 2022.
Cool. There you
So,
go.
all right. Well, I guess that's where we end. We
Yeah.
appreciate everybody listening to our little grab bag episode. Make sure you let us know. You can tell how starved and thirsty we are for new records. So make sure you let us know what we're missing out on in the comments. We read and try and respond to all the comments on YouTube. So we appreciate everybody who's there doing that and being part of that community. So thanks so much for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. It's been the Album of Record podcast.